Title belts to Hall of Fame. Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, cry. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Guys, how was your Christmas?
Man, Gene, mine was great. I love Christmas, like I've said, and me and Melissa had a great Christmas. And Tommy, I'm sure you had a big Christmas, didn't you?
I had a ho Christmas, yeah. No, it's all good, man. Great Christmas. Just getting to celebrate with your family a little bit, just hanging out. We went up to Terry's mom's, and so we had a good Christmas, and hope everybody else had a very Merry Christmas. And hey, we're coming into the New Year too. I want to wish everybody a very Happy New Year too. But it's a pleasure to be aboard again this week, man.
Well, man, it's great to have you guys on here, and we finished 2024 strong, but man, we're coming into 2025 hot. We've got a lot of fun things going to be going on with the podcast. You guys have got a lot of great bookings coming up. The Memphis Mafia tour is going to be happening in 2025. Man, just so much great stuff that we're going to be looking at this year.
Oh, and hey, and I want to say something. I see where the followers are getting bigger and bigger too, man. Hey, I want to thank everybody that's following the show, man, for reaching out and sharing with other folks, and just because it's kicking off good for the new year, man.
Oh, yeah, and like Tommy said, Gene, we want to wish everybody a very happy new year and everything. And like Tommy said, we appreciate everybody listening in and everything. And I hope everybody enjoys the stories and like I said, the knowledge that you throw towards us where we do actually remember there's so many matches and so many nights and so much time you're on the road. And what's really cool to me is I can go back and watch, some YouTube stuff and just some stuff people send to me. Like what's cool is since we started doing the show, people started sending me a lot more of the older stuff and everything. And man, it's cool just to watch a lot of that stuff that the people send and listen to the comments that they have on them.
Yeah, I love the comments, man. You really start to see just how much this stuff means to fans and how much they remember it. When they go in the comments and they start talking about, where they were when they saw this or who they watched it with or, who took them to the matches. And I don't know, it just makes it's really, really cool just to see what all this means to everybody. I know it means a lot to us doing this show. I know it means a lot to you guys because you guys were there doing it, and it meant a lot to me growing up watching it. And sometimes I wonder if, like, oh man, am I a little too obsessed with wrestling? Is it a little too much? A little more than it needs to be. But man, I see these comments and the things that people send us, and I realize that man, there's folks out there that love it just as much, and maybe in some cases even more than we do.
Right, and me and Tommy look at it, and like I think you do, Gene, is nostalgia and everything. But I mean, what gets me is like the people that send us stuff and send me stuff, and Tommy and yourself stuff. To them, actually, I think, and I mean, it means so much to me and Tommy that what people say about it and that they like it and everything. But to the people, it seems like it means, if it can, more to them than that does to us. And I mean, it means the world to us. So that tells you what, I mean, like you're saying about the people and what they think about it.
Oh, and that's what I was going to say too, man. My grandson called me today from work, and his buddies know I wrestle, but they didn't know who Tommy Wildfire Rich was because they 20 years old. They wasn't, but they called me from work. They was checking it out on YouTube, man. they didn't realize who Tommy Wildfire Rich was. And just for them tapes and stuff to still be out there, I mean, it is, like Dougie said, it's really cool.
It is, man. I know, like, for me, you know, I see that stuff, and when I watch it, I think, oh, man, this is cool. I love this match, or I remember this angle. But then it takes me back to where I was in my life at the time, and it just, like you say, that nostalgia, like you said, Doug, it's just the whole thing just really takes you back there from all points, of just the wrestling side and just, you know, your life and everything. So it's cool that there's so much footage, you know, that exists of you guys' careers. You know, we talked to, you know, some of the older wrestlers, and there's just not as much, you know, they didn't do as much TV. There wasn't as much, you know, footage in the arena. You guys are fortunate that there's so much footage of you guys' matches out there. You know, we talked about on a recent episode, there are some matches that you guys wish existed on tape, but man, there sure is a lot. And I've been discovering that, especially since we've been doing this podcast, that man, there's just so much great stuff out there, and I'm glad everybody's enjoying it. And there's still plenty more. We haven't scratched the surface of all the great stuff we're going to be posting on that Facebook page. So if you haven't yet, follow us, Facebook.com/DougGilbertPodcast.
And if you have pictures of Tommy or myself, you can shoot them in to Gene, and he will also put those up. And there's probably going to be some very funny pictures that are shot to him. Like they can send them to you on Messenger, right, Gene? On
Absolutely. You can send them on to either to my Gene Jackson Facebook, or you can send them to the podcast Facebook. I can get them from either place, or you can send them to the email where you can send your questions as well, douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com. We can get them from any of those sources, and we will be more than happy not only to check them out, but like Doug said, to share them for everybody else to see as well.
And the cool thing, me and Tommy like to look at those ourselves. I mean, it's not just the fans looking at them. Me and Tommy look at them and laugh, and we'll call each other, and I said, you remember this? Because a lot of them are, I mean, it's just, like I said, nostalgic type stuff, and stuff that you know, we got to look at and see where we was at when we took them with people and everything. It's kind of cool stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean it is. It's like you said. I mean, we were like when we started. I mean, that's when they first started really taping and having that stuff. I mean, the tapes like you're talking about, Gene. I mean, and probably later for me. I mean, even like when I first started. I mean, you had the TV tapings, but you know, they didn't do many of the house shows unless it was an angle. They didn't come in and film none of that. So, you know, when you run across some of them old tapes and stuff, it is really cool.
Well, I don't know, Gene, if I'll be able to send y'all on Tommy's, because some of those pictures might be on wood, mine and Tommy.
Yeah, on tree bark.
I'm just playing.
You a funny man.
All right. Well, before Doug gets himself in trouble, we better keep it moving here. We're speaking of nostalgia.
It ain't that funny, Gene.
Mean Gene, the time it is just a little bit funny, but I'm sorry, Tyler.
Oh no.
So you know, Tommy, you had mentioned recently that you know you wanted to talk about some USWA, you know, being the last territory, as we've talked about here. So what I've done is I've gone through year by year of the USWA and made notes of what you guys were involved with, and a lot of the cards and different matches was going on. So we're going to start here today in 1990 and just kind of start working our way through. I don't know how far we'll get. You know, like I say, we've got every year of the USWA to eventually get through, and we're not going to do this in, you know, every week, but thought this was as good a time as any. So as we rolled into 1990, Tommy, you were working in WCW. Doug, you were, among other things, teaming up with Dennis Condrey in ICW, like we've talked about. And you guys were winning tag team titles up there. And it wasn't until around August of 1990, Doug, when you came back into the USWA and you teamed up with your brother Eddie and the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony for a 6-man steel cage match. And check out these opponents. You guys took on Austin Idol, Bill Dundee, and Jerry Lawler. And what a triumphant return from me. You guys got the win in this 6-man cage match. Do you remember much about that match, Doug?
Well, I was going to say I'm kind of shocked about the finish, but I do remember the match. I didn't remember the finish, to be perfectly honest. But you could ask anybody else, and if you wouldn't have said what the finish was, they'd told you that they probably beat me. But anyway, it was cool. I had just come back, I think, from Arizona then, and I'd been out there with my dad for a little bit, and I'd come back and I'd called my brother, and I got a starting date from Lawler, and I come back, but they was doing good business. I mean, when I started back in there, they was doing good business, and the angles, which, like I said, they was bringing idle in, and they'd bring at different times, and during those times that'd be like when they would bring Tommy in. I mean, like when we bring idle in, it would mean something and everything, and they was doing good business, and they had programs set up, and I mean it was drawing good, and I mean it was just a cool, you can go through them stretches where it seems like you can't hardly do anything wrong. Even I'm talking Booker wise or working wise or anything, then you can go through stretches that aren't so good. But I do remember that. And I mean, my brother's, such a great worker and mind for the business and everything. And Tony was always a great worker and everything. And I mean, I had those two guys to fall back on, so I was in good shape. And then, like you said, you got Lawler out on Dundee. You can't go wrong there and everything. But, I mean, it was just cool. I think the matches was cool, and I think there's a lot of footage out there of those. I know there's footage of the last 3, 4, or 5 minutes of them anyway that people have still got, and some people might have the whole, because I think Randy West taped everything, but I mean, like for TV, they would put in the last couple minutes, like the finish of it and everything, and what was set up for the next week and everything. But that was some cool stuff, and that's what I was going to tell you. Like stuff like that is what I love as far as seeing and talking about and everything. And I think Tommy too, because there's so many different things and matches that he's been in, that I've been in, that are really cool and to me symbolic of the Memphis territory and actually drawing money.
Hey, and like you said, that Randy West, man, he needs a big shout out because he did. He filmed. I mean, he was there anytime and every time, and he did film. I mean, he filmed it from the get to the end. And, sometimes, like you said, I think, like you said, he probably filmed most every match. I know at least the last 4 or 5, I know he did, because it was just main matches. I mean, so, yeah, Randy West, big shout out to him, man. Yeah, that's cool. You said Randy. He's one of, when I hit under the ring in Memphis, he pushed me out on his little TV cart before everybody got there. I was under a tarp and on this TV cart. He'd get there so early to set up, Yeah.
And, Randy West, who did he marry? He married Deborah's sister, right, Tommy?
Yeah, Diane, yeah.
Diane. And he was Jerry's brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Jerry Jarrett's brother-in-law.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And everything. Is that right? Yeah, and like Tommy said, he'd set up, and starting about the third match, he would start filming, and, he would film the rest of the night, and if there was anything needed, for TV, or if, like, Jerry just wanted to watch some of the matches or whatever, he would have them taped and everything.
Because I know in some of the towns, like in '85 in Jackson, they had a show of just the arena matches, and they would run those, those matches like you're talking about. They're on YouTube. You can find
for
old
TV,
matches.
And they would do that. And I even see, Gene, I didn't remember this, but I saw the other day someone sent me a TV match that I was on, but it was from Jackson. I don't remember that at all. I mean, I remembered the match, but I don't recall why it was on TV, why, the matches, it was like a whole TV, but it was from the Jackson Coliseum. I don't know if something with the TV station we might not could have got in that week or something, but I had never recalled that before.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think somebody told me they were doing like a renovation of the studio at the time or something, and you guys had to like shoot it out of the studio for like just one set of tapings. I think they shot enough matches to do 2 weeks of TV or something.
Well, and see, someone shot me that. That was cool because, like I said, I didn't even remember that. And I mean, I remember once I started watching the match, but I was thinking, now why was we not in the TV station?
Right.
And everything, but that's a bit different.
See, since I'm old as tree bark, I remember doing a TV live, or not live, but just doing they used to have the old Jackson TV that we used to do, I know that's for USWA, that's back at the beginning, but yeah, I remember wrestling on Jackson TV there too. I mean, yeah, Jackson, shoot, that was a big town for wrestling.
And Gene, you know where, I think me and you've talked about this maybe before, but you know where Lance Russell come from, right? He come from Jackson.
Right.
And the station was, I think, me and you might have talked about this, for WDIE, I think was the station. And that's where Lance kind of, where he started his stuff. And like I said, he was the first one a lot of people on here that listen to us know as far as the Southern stuff. Bill Dance, the big Fisherman. Lance was the one that produced that show, and it was his idea to have that show. And look at the success that show went on to have.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I had to watch that with my dad every week when I was a kid. It was wrestling and Bill Dance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And right. And people don't know that. Lance, I mean, it was Lance's idea. I mean, a fishing show and Bill Dance to be the guy and everything. So to me, that's really cool.
Yeah, because that would have been the time when fishing shows weren't even a thing, were they? Like, that would have probably been one of the first ones.
It was the first one. And the cool thing is, up here at the Lexington Fair this year, his son come up and talked with me and Lawler, and his son's still grateful that, Lance give his dad that chance. And I mean, made him a freaking fortune. I mean, he's done great his whole life with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, all the different sponsors and everything. And yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah. And that's what he was talking about. Now he's still got sponsors, and he was talking about the different areas that he's got boats from the sponsors right now. Like a couple of them's in Florida, and he was talking about his dad and some of his friends going down to Florida to go fishing on the boats that they still got, that their sponsors still have for them and everything. And I thought that was really neat.
Well, that was one of the first, celebrity type people, or at least I considered him a celebrity. Me and my dad was fishing at Pickwick one time, and we ran into Bill Dance was down there fishing, and I got to meet him, and I was starstruck because he's one of the first people from television that I met in person. I remember thinking that was just the coolest thing to see Bill Dance down there.
Yeah, and I mean,
he's kind of like us. When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And he sure had it, man, just going out there catching them fish. I didn't know that little bit with the Lance had set it up. That is really cool. Yeah, but yeah, that's another job. Yeah, I could live with that fishing all my life. Yeah, but that's cool. And Lance was involved in a lot of stuff.
Lance was a really smart guy, and I don't know if everybody knows that. As far as, I mean, I think the people knew he was great as an announcer, but I mean, as far as a producer, all different aspects in the industry, he was really good.
Yep. Yeah, he ran the station, and that's one thing I love about the show is I learn new stuff every week from you guys. So it's a lot of fun, but it's also very informative, which is our intention. So that cage match we were just talking about, and I'm curious to see if Tommy ever got a chance to see this or if he knows about it, because we actually put a clip of this on our Facebook page in the last couple weeks. So the following week after that cage match, we had a rematch inside a steel cage, same 6 guys, except this time the loser of the fall gets their head shaved. And well, things didn't go as well the second week, Doug, and you ended up getting your head shaved.
I'll fix that. If you said that about that first finish, I figured the next finish wouldn't go very well for me.
But now, luckily for you,
you give a little bit, then you got 2. Come on, yeah. Say won that first week.
Hey, Tommy, that mean Gene was building me up to tear me down.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, damn.
I mean, Lawler was building you up to tear you down, but that's another story.
Hey, Tommy, first he's making fun of you, now he's making fun of me, ain't he?
No, yeah. We had punchlines tonight, I reckon.
Well, it wasn't as bad as it
you're
sounds,
right,
guys. Luckily, it turns out that you guys had some of Granny Gilbert's magic hair elixir on hand, and by the time you got from the Mid-South Coliseum to the studio on Saturday morning for TV, Your hair had magically grown back, Doug. I mean, perhaps even
Tommy,
more luxurious than before.
Hey, it grew back.
Luxurious. I get luxurious.
It grew back, and it looked better than I think it ever had before.
Well,
you know what? If you really looked at it, it kind of looked like Elvis's hair.
It really did. I thought I was looking at the king of rock and roll, Doug Gilbert, for a second there.
Well, and if you would have went to that Elvis shop, that's where you would have got that hair at.
That's where that hair did come from. I can't.
Yeah. I was Elvis. I had that Elvis look going for a while.
So tell us where that. So were you guys just in the car, and Eddie or you or somebody had the idea of this Granny Gilbert's hair elixir? Tell us how that came about.
Oh yeah, before the match, I said, well, what are we going to do? We was talking about, and they wanted to do the hair match, and they said, well, are you all right with it? And when they looked at me and said, are you all right with it? I knew wasn't nobody else getting their head shaved in that match but me. And I said, well, yeah. I mean, because, I was just a young kid at the time. I knew my hair. I wasn't worried about my hair growing back or nothing. Now, all them, they wasn't none of them going to shave their head. But I said, I don't care. And they always really took care of me as far as on all the payoffs and everything when I'd done stuff like that and everything. And so we shaved it. But before it happened, like the Tuesday in Louisville, Eddie said, we need to have some kind of a hair elixir and that we can say. And then Wednesday night, this was Tuesday, he said that on the way up to Louisville. And Wednesday night after Evansville, Eddie said, we need to call it Granny Gilbert's hair elixir or something like that. And I said, whatever you think sounds good's good with me. And he said, but we've got to get a good, like a wig. And I said, a good wig. And then I started laughing. I thought, no, this just really fixed to be some entertaining. And it was entertaining. I mean, if you watch it back, I popped. I watched it the other day and everything, and it was cool. But I mean, it was like, look, to me, it was cool. It was like before its time. I mean, it was that cool. I thought it was neat.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see you in the mask,
and
you think, "Oh, he's bald." Well, and then that mask comes off, and you got all that hair. It pops me every single time.
Yeah, Tommy, I went out there with a mask on, like when because I was going to people was going to see me bald headed, so they'd laugh. And then when I pulled the mask off, I had on that wig, and it actually looked good, looked better than my hair ever did, and everything. So then it was like we had double crossed them, and then as far as it killing you off, or it didn't kill you off, it just got you more heat than it did before they shaved your head. And that was the whole deal with me thinking about Eddie's booking, Gene, because people would think, oh, you done something, you do finishes. Well, always our logic was people wanted finishes. I mean, you'd have a DQ here or there, but you had so many other bookers that wouldn't give the people finishes. And if you did give the people finishes, I think that's what made the people happy.
Especially like in them hair matches, people got cheated out of a lot of them, like with a swerve. And, it's like, like Dougie shaved his head. I mean, I've been in some to where nobody got the head shaved, and it was bad. It's like when Ida did that deal with Lawler. I mean, it was like Ida was going to give all the money back to the people if he didn't win, and if Lawler was going to shave his head. The people knew they was either going to get in for free or Lawler's head was going to be shaved. I mean, a lot of times, and that's what makes them matches, and that's cool. And see, that's just some of that old school. They don't do nothing like that today. I mean, Doug come out with that. See, I didn't know that. I'd love to see that film myself.
Oh yeah, we'll send you that clip. It's on the Facebook page. But Tommy, speaking of that match with Idol, the one where you were under the ring, they had done some kind of wonky thing with Lawler and hair matches over the years, and I've always felt like if you guys hadn't delivered that night, if Lawler hadn't got his head shaved or Idol hadn't gave that money back, it probably would have killed the town.
Oh, yeah, and here's the thing, Gene, because and they learned that before because they done the deal with Lawler against Handsome Jimmy, and they didn't talk about who was going to get their head shaved, and they just thought they'd get out of it with nobody. Well, they got out of it all right, but the people, when I say rioted, they cut the chairs up in the Coliseum. They broke out the windows in the Coliseum. They did so much damage in the Coliseum. I forget how much money Jerry Jarrett had to pay the Coliseum because the people like rioted because nobody got their head shaved. It was a hair versus hair, Lawler against Handsome Jimmy, and nobody shaved their head.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about how invested the fans were then, and they were, but that's the other side of that is everybody's so invested. If you don't follow through, there's going to be consequences because people want to see what they promised.
Right, and I mean, Gene, that night, the Lawler against Valiant, hair versus hair, it was sold out, and they said they had to turn away about 3,000 or 4,000 people.
Wow, that's crazy.
So when you're doing business like that, you've got to, and I would have thought, which I guess Jerry just thought they could get around it, but they wound up saying, like I said, they busted every window out of the Coliseum. They cut the seats in the Coliseum. I mean, it was a major during that time, but I think they learned from that time that it would never be nothing else, like that. But it was cool. And like I said, the thing about the wig and stuff, it got your heat right back. I mean, yeah, they'd shaved your head, so you think that the people was happy and it was babyface finish, and that's good. But then it gets your heat right back and do the gimmick thing like we done, and then you're right back off to the races again, starting another story.
Yeah, you and Eddie were the masters of that because, like you said, a lot of people didn't want to deliver on finishes because they wanted to keep their heat and all that kind of stuff. But you guys were the masters of letting the babyface win, paying off the gimmick, but immediately coming back on television, no matter what territory it was, and boom, you got your heat right back, and you're
And you say me and Eddie, me and Tommy done the same thing. It's. I mean, if you're, I don't want to say ego. We've all had egos and have egos at times, but if you know the business, and I mean, during all mine and Tommy's runs, we put people over a bunch, but we got our heat right back, and it never. And a lot of times we'd have more heat when we left than when we was coming to the ring, and that's what the other people didn't understand, and that's what Gene kind of shocks me, and which Tommy can speak on it a little bit, but that's what kind of shocks me. But I think that's just knowing the business and the aspect of working.
Oh, and that's and Tennessee was a good place to learn that stuff too. Anyway, I mean, you'd have a DQ every now and then, but most of the time you had you put somebody over, and then if it's a heel, you put them over, and you might beat them up, or the baby face would scoot out, and when I was a baby face, I got beat more than I won probably at the get-go. But it's just going out there, and if you know how, and plus we learned from the best too. I mean, if you go out there and listen to that crowd too, man, and it is all about winning and losing. People don't care to see no DQ even like back then, the time limit, to go Broadway or go a draw with somebody meant more than the DQ did, I mean, because you made it competition, people, it just.
And Gene, I want you to look this up sometime, but you're fixing to just laugh at this story. And like I said, we get a little bit off of the years and what you want to talk about, but this falls somewhere in those years. They brought Eddie. I think Eddie was the unified champion then, and that they booked the card, and they was bringing Tommy in, and I think Eddie thought they was bringing Tommy in to work against him. Well, that when they showed us the card, they had Eddie against Dundee and me right under that against Tommy. And I seen Eddie look at that card, and he looked up, and I looked at him, and he kind of looked at me, and I thought, well, he ain't going to say nothing, but I knew what he was thinking. He thought he was going to be working with Tommy, and I was going to be working with Dundee, which me and Tommy was right under them. But so Tommy cuts a promo at his house in the backyard, and there's some hogs behind him. And he's cutting the promo. And I don't know if Tommy remembers this, but Gene, you can pull it up from somewhere. I know you'll be able to find it. But Tommy says, I'm coming to Memphis, and I'm coming for one reason. He said, it's not for hot stuff. He said, what do we call his brother Doug? What do we call him? Big stuff? And I popped when Tommy said that. But, none of us had seen the promo to it until they played it on TV that day and everything. But I worked against Tommy, and Eddie worked against Bill. And me and him was talking about it, and he said, well, I just took for granted when they said Tommy was coming in that I'd be working against him. He said, I didn't know it was going to be you working against Tommy and me working against Bill. And I laughed, but Eddie scratched his head on that one. But you talking about the funny promo that Tommy sent in, and he had the hogs behind him. Do you remember any of that, Tommy?
I do remember, because I went over to my buddy's house. I had a buddy of mine down there in Georgia that had some hogs, yeah. Yeah, when you said hogs, I got to thinking, well, hell, I ain't never had no hogs. But I had a buddy of mine that had like a little farm with some cows and stuff too, but he had a couple of hogs too.
I've got that on my hard drive. I've seen that in like the last few months, so I'll find that and get it on the Facebook so everybody can check that out. It was definitely a fun promo from Tommy. Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
In the timeline that we're kind of following here, coming out of August 1990, this is where we would get to the infamous hit-and-run angle in the parking lot. Now, we're going to dedicate a whole show to that eventually and get deep into that one. So we're not going to talk about it right now, but I figured I'd at least acknowledge it so people can go, oh, he skipped over that. Well, yes, we're intentionally skipping over it because we're going to come back to it. So jumping ahead in 1990 just a little bit, over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, Doug, you were having matches with Bill Dundee, Nightmare Danny Davis. We've talked in the past about you and Eddie's relationship with Jerry Lawler, and I know we'll talk about that more in the future. And we know Eddie looked up to Lawler as a fan and as he got into the business and patterned a lot of what he did after Lawler. But we haven't really talked a lot about the relationship between you guys and Bill Dundee and what, you and Eddie's impressions of Dundee were, watching him as fans before you got into the business, and then in comparison to kind of how your impressions of him was once you got into the business and started working with him. So, and of course, Tommy, I know, has got plenty to tell us, about working with Bill Dundee too. So let's hear what you guys have to say about the superstar, Bill Dundee.
Well, I guess I can start this out as far as what I think the world of Bill now, and I mean, I think I always did, but it was one of those funny things in which Lawler put me in a program with Bill a couple different times, and I just seen all of the great matches. And Tommy was in a bunch of I think really good matches with Bill and everything. And I mean, Bill was a great worker, but you know how sometimes your chemistry, you just, some people, I mean, have got chemistry, I guess, with everybody, but most people don't have chemistry with everybody, but with a lot of people they do. But I worked with Bill a lot, and I think we had some pretty good matches, but I never think none of them was great. And my brother also had made the same remarks to me, but it's funny because, I mean, Bill was a great worker, but, like I said, sometimes you just don't, your chemistry just kind of don't match up. And I'm not saying none of them was bad, and it sure wasn't Bill's fault. If anybody's fault, it would have been mine, but just, we didn't have the best chemistry. But I always loved Bill. Bill was always super nice to me and everything. And I heard him on TikTok, I think, the other day, and they asked him about Eddie and myself, and I popped. And but anyway, I think he'd be honest now, which I guess he'd have been honest back then, but he said we had a strictly professional relationship. They was asking about who he liked, and he didn't say nothing about he liked us, but I mean, I think we was always okay with Bill and everything. And like I said, I really liked Bill and everything. But like I said, you know how when you can have matches and you kind of connect with people, and I think Tommy knows what I'm saying. I think you do too, Gene. But it was just like, and I think some of the matches was good, and I might watch them over and maybe think it was real good. But I just never thought. I guess just after me seeing all the good matches that he had with all the different people, that I thought it would be easy and everything. But when just styles sometimes don't mesh. But what shocked me, I could understand that with me and Bill, but I couldn't understand it because I didn't think I was near as good as Eddie, but I couldn't understand it with Eddie and Bill.
Well, I'm going to tell you what Doug and Bill Dundee have in common. I went to jail with both of them. There's a couple of famous mug shots of me and Bill Dundee out there, too.
but I mean, but Tommy, you had good. I mean, y'all was partners and stuff. But I mean, you worked against Bill, and you had good matches with him and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, Bill. Yeah, I mean, but I'm gonna tell you, when they was bad, when I mean, shit, that's when I just got in the business, and hell, and I remember Bill when they first come in, he had Jay. I mean, you might be a year or two older than Jamie, but I mean, I remember y'all when y'all was kids. I mean, y'all grew up
right.
in the business, and but I mean, when the Australians come in, George Barnes and Bill Dundee, they, people turned their heads. I mean, they was from Memphis. They was different, just some old rugged, they was badass. I mean. And Bill, of course, and then Bill turned babyface too, and he started believing that stuff too, I mean, I was glad I teamed up with him. I didn't have to wrestle him. I didn't mind wrestling him when he's a heel, though. I mean, they took bumps. I mean, him and George Barnes, they was a hell of a tag team. And of course, Bill, I mean, he draw money with Lawler, he draw it with Boogie. I mean, he draw money with everybody.
That's what I'm saying. He drew money with everybody. And that's why I think, because I watched when I was a kid all that, and it was all so good, I thought that it would be easy just to go in there and it'd be good. But it was like, I don't know, like I said, and Tommy, you know what I mean, and I think Gene, you did too, like, I mean, the chemistry and the difference, but I never seen anybody that I thought my brother had a hard time you know, I mean, even if he had a hard time, I thought it was great matches and everything. But he told me one time, because I said, man, I want this to be so good. I said, and I don't know. I said, it's not flowing, you know, but you know, we all have those times, I guess.
You know, there's been a lot said over the years. I mean, we all were in, you know, Jackson a couple of months ago where, you know, at the Hall of Fame, you know, they celebrated the feud of, you know, Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler, and Lord knows it's probably the most famous feud of all time in Memphis, and will be talked about, you know, probably long after we're all gone. But you guys have some perspective on this. It's always, you know, it's been speculated, you know, how much of that was, you know, just completely, you know, they were just, you know, best buddies, and they went out the ring and they worked this feud. But a lot of people say that well, there was always an element of competition and, you know, a little bit of bad blood. So what's you guys' perspective on that? Have you got any fun stories about, you know, the competitiveness of those guys?
I don't know about no fun stories, but back during that period, I don't think neither one of them liked each other very much. I mean, they friends now. But, yeah, I think there wasn't a lot of life.
Yeah, no, they was a whole bunch.
It was business.
They done business together to draw money, to make money, but they didn't like one another. I mean, anybody can say whether they want now. I mean, that we've all got older and I guess matured a little bit, but in the heyday and everything, one of them wouldn't have picked the other one up on the side of the road, unless Jerry Jarrett would have been in the car and made them. But I mean, it was there wasn't no love lost. I mean, one wouldn't have done the other one a favor. And I mean, I'm being honest. Some people won't say, "Oh, y'all just saying that to make it sound good," but no, I'm telling you, it was. And as far as a lot of people don't know this, I mean, you know, when. You know, Lawler was at one point was going to break away from Jerry and Lawler had Lance and Jerry had Bill as far as like their right hand guys and everything. But I mean, Lance was going to go with Lawler, and Lawler and Lance start their own Memphis. I don't know if you ever heard this, Gene, and I think Tommy's probably heard it, knows it, and everything. But the different TV station, when they was at 13, it was going to be 5, or if they was at 5, it was going to be 13 that Lawler and Lance was going to go to. But they was going to start their own and them run Memphis and everything. And then they wound up at the last minute. Well, they had a meeting, and Jarrett took Bill with him to the meeting, and Lawler went to the meeting by himself. But now Bill's story is that Jerry had a gun in his boot, Jerry Jarrett did, and he said if Lawler freaking tried to double cross him, he was going to shoot him.
Wow.
And the deal was Lance wound up, and a lot of people don't know this. I don't know, and Tommy, I'm sure you've heard the story, but Lance had done went and put $10,000 up. The TV station told him, said, "We'll give you this for y'all to come over here, but will you put $10,000 up?" And Lance put $10,000 up. Well, during that meeting with Jarrett gave Lawler the percentage. I'm not sure what the percentage was Lawler wanted, but Jarrett gave Lawler the percentage that he asked for. So that kept Lance and Lawler from leaving and starting their own against him. But then the story of it is Lance was out $10,000, but Lawler always made Jerry take care of Lance. But Jerry was really hot at Lance and Lawler both for going to leave and everything. But they said, that Jerry had a pistol in his boot and told Bill that he would, before they left the meeting, if they didn't have an agreement, he would he was going to shoot Lawler, basically kill him, what it sounded like.
Wow.
Well, and then I can get that. I mean, who knows? We won't never know the whole story. But if they had a split like that, I mean, I just think it would have killed Memphis anyway. I think that was a smart thing, them coming back together and working together and everything. Because I think 2 wrestling promotions there locally in Memphis wouldn't have lasted, 2 months. I think in the long run for both of them, that was the best way to go.
Oh, yeah, me too. I just think Lawler didn't think Jarrett was going to give him what he wanted, so he wanted to have the plan, and Jarrett had done done knew before they went into the meeting that they'd done had the other TV station. The money done been paid down and everything. So Lawler played his cards right, and he done well with it.
Yeah, and it's been said, I mean, of course they were friends and everything, but I've always heard it said that, Jerry Jarrett always carried a little bit of hard feelings towards Lance from that point on after that.
Yeah, yes, he did, but I will say this, and anybody can say whatever about Lawler they want to, but Lawler always told Lance that because Lance knew he was going to be the one that probably got screwed out of that deal, and Lawler said, as long as I am with him, you will always have a job. And he and he did, but Lance drew people too. I mean, like we've said, who had more airtime than anybody? A lot of people would say Jerry Lawler. No, Lance Russell.
No, Jerry. I mean, Lance's mug was on that from the opening of the show to the end, or at the very least, you were hearing his voice. If you weren't seeing him, you were hearing him.
Exactly, and that means the world. And like I said, Lance was selling tickets that whole time he was on there.
So let me ask you guys this. We've always heard, and I know it to be true, that they would split the booking, between, Lawler and Jarrett. There would be spells where Lawler is booking. There would be spells where Jerry Jarrett's booking. They'd kind of hand it off. How, from you guys' standpoint, did you have a preference over one or the other, or was there a drastic difference in the way things were ran or how things went compared to who was currently in charge at the time, or is that overstated?
Oh, yeah, there was a drastic, which, Tommy, you can give your opinion, and I'll tell Gene what I think about it.
Well, I mean, it's like each one of them had their favorites. I mean, and, like when Jerry was in there, but Lawler, when we was doing business, if you're drawing money, you work. Whether it's like whether they liked you or not, like Bill and Jerry Lawler not liking each other, that didn't have nothing to do with drawing money, because you got paid for putting asses in the seat. So whether they liked you or not, they would still use you because they knew you drew money. And, of course, Jerry Jarrett brought me in the business. Him and Tojo. So probably a little more favoritism there than Jerry Lawler. But, hey, Jerry Lawler, one of the smartest men in this business, too. Both of them, different, maybe a little different ways to do stuff, but both of them geniuses in this business. You put up a coin, either one of them to me was, because it was always drawing money. You look out there, and the Memphis Coliseum wasn't three quarters or better full. They was wondering they were talking to each other about what's wrong with. They always had, the business was in the best interest. Because it was about putting asses in the seats. But they would work, whether they liked each other or not, they worked together in order to put, the butts in the seats and to just make it where it drawed good money. And both of them did. Both of them had good heads for drawing money.
And Gene, if you can look back at now, and every person that listens to this can, and they will understand, and they would know who was booking. When Jerry Jarrett was booking, you had more wrestlers. Pure wrestlers on the card. When Lawler was booking, he loved the wrestlers also, but you was going to have 3 or 4 gimmick type guys on the card. Like from monsters to mask guys to. You always had Lawler would always throw his, and I thought it was cool because, it was something different. What we always say is you want something different from the bottom to the top that everybody, that all the different people would be interested in. And like where Tommy said, and his problem was, he said they were both brilliant, and they both was, but where Tommy would probably go more with Jerry Jarrett, I would go probably more with Jerry Lawler, because here's the thing. Jarrett was the owner, which that's a good thing. We needed an owner. But Lawler's thinking was, I don't think he had his part of the company, but I think he still thought like one of the boys. And what I mean by that is he took better care. And there was different ones of us, and I'm probably Jarrett probably took better care of Tommy than maybe Lawler did. But as far as taking care of like myself, Eddie, and everything, we would be better taken care of with Lawler. And, I mean, we would know what was going on. And, I mean, Jerry would tell you what was going on and everything. But I mean, and the thing, I guess the difference was, hell, at certain times, I mean, it might be the day before TV, and Lawler might not have even decided, but the whole deal was just getting him on the phone or him calling us and him saying, hey, what do y'all think about this? And then him giving you or like me and Eddie, we could say, well, how about this? And he would do like me and Tommy talked about before, people giving you, a little leadway with everything. And he was really good with us about that. And I mean, he told me one time, and I've never really heard him say this about anybody else, but he told me that it was sometime after Eddie passed away that he said, you do know why I like working against Eddie so much, didn't you? And I said, no, because he never ever really talked about liking to work against anybody. And he said, because he reminded me of myself. And I thought that was really cool because I'd never heard that or anything. But just like I said, it was the difference. And you can ask Tommy and Gene, you can look back at it, but Tommy, you could always tell the difference. Like, I mean, even if we wasn't in the territory, you could look at it and tell who was booking, either Jerry, either Jarrett or Lawler, because, I mean, you could tell the difference in their booking. Like I said, Jerry would go straight with no gimmick guys, nothing, straight wrestlers, right, Tommy? I mean, he would have like bringing Bill and George in as Australians, but that's not gimmick guys. They was wrestlers. But I'm talking about, what I'm talking about, like the Dr. Frank and the different monsters that Lawler would have, which I thought that was always really cool.
Well, Jerry brought that Big Bad John. He a couple gimmicks he did. I mean, but Lawler, but like Lord Humongous. I mean,
but I mean, like Big Bad.
Lawler,
like, I mean, Big Bad John, but he was a guy. I mean, like you're talking about, what I'm talking about, gimmicks is like you're talking about, you said, Tommy, Lord Humongous, the Leatherface, the different Freddy's, and just that's more Lawler type. And you knew when you saw that, I mean, even if you wasn't in the territory, you knew Jerry Jarrett wasn't booking that, Lawler was booking that. But then, like Tommy said, I mean, Jarrett would bring guys. I'm not saying that or knocking him or nothing. I love Jerry's stuff also, but I mean, it was more wrestling type stuff. Like Tommy said, Big Bad John. Well, I mean, Big Bad John was a wrestler. He was just a big guy.
Yeah, but he had that All-American outfit on, though, but he was...
Like I said, that's when they said...
He wasn't no monster gimmick. He just was a big happy-go-lucky gimmick.
Right. And like I said, I think we've said this before, how Bill started calling the superstar. He said, they're going to call me the Bison.
Teamed up with some was Big Bad.
Well, yeah, he said, if they're going to call me the Bicentennial Baby, you're going to call him the Superstar. And that's where the Superstar come from.
Right, I didn't remember that. That's exactly right. The Bicentennial. Yeah. Oh, Lord, yeah.
Yeah, I had always heard exactly what you'd said there, Doug, as far as, if you looked on the card, that you could either look at if there were monsters and gimmicks on the card, or you could just count the number of wrestlers on the card. Like if there was a 10-man tag match on the card, Lawler had probably booked it. That Jerry Jarrett was a lot more, he was going to not pay that many people on a single card,
Right, but here's the thing about that, Gene, and some people wouldn't like it, but you'd have, say, 5 matches, then a 10-man tag for the main event. But that was where I think Lawler's logic was, I mean, where he was still, why I say he was still one of the boys, where we could all make more money if there was less of us, and say you wasn't on a deal or anything, that was more money to go around. The fewer the guys, the more money. I mean, that made sense. And like I said, it just seemed like, which, I mean, everybody's got to make money and everything. And I mean, I just think Jarrett thought he had to make more than what Lawler thought they had to make.
I get that, and you can kind of see where that logic applies from both sides of the coin, So, that's just something people could debate all day, and people are going to have their personal opinions on it, depending on like you say, who it benefited more.
But I mean, that goes back to the deal, Gene. Like I said, Tommy made his deal. I made my deal. If somebody wasn't happy, they didn't have to be there. I mean, they could find somewhere else to go if they could go somewhere else and everything. But I mean, Tommy, ain't that kind of the way you saw it?
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. I make good money with both of them. So, yeah, whether Jerry Jarrett brought me in or I draw some big money with Jerry Lawler, I make money, the whole time there. I mean, that Tennessee territory, it was a hell of a territory, and them two, I mean, they both did a hell of a job, irregardless, because it always draws.
Absolutely. Well, we're gonna wrap up here in just a minute, but to finish out 1990. You and Doug, you and the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony, you guys won the USWA tag team titles. Held on to them for quite a while there until you ran into the Fabulous Ones had been reunited, Steve Kern and Stan Lane, and you guys ended up losing the titles to them, but you would end up getting them back. But how was it working with the Fabs in 1991 compared to the guys who had been there in 84, 85?
Well, it was still Stan and Steve was still cool then, and they were still over, not to the aspect as they was in 85, but they were still over, and the people still loved them, and it was cool for me, nostalgic for me as being a young man when they was so over and everything. It was cool for me just to get to work with them. But the funny thing about this is we wound up, me and Tony worked with them, and because they had brought them back and they was going to put them in a program with Jeff and Lawler and everything. I think me and Tony wound up, didn't we drop the straps to the Fabs, I think?
You did, right?
Is
right
that right?
At the very beginning of 91.
Yeah, we did that, and then because it was setting up angle for Jeff and Lawler to work against the Fabs, and they thought that was going to do real good. But now the funny thing about this, though, is then you go, 5 or 6 years later, and here I go working against the Fabs again, but it's me and Tommy. Ain't that right?
Yep, on those
and everything. Shows. But hey, it was real cool. Me and Tony working with them, man. Steve and Stan was still cool and everything, and I mean, and the people still bought their stuff, and I mean, everything. Still remember them as the Fabs, and still I think it drew quite well. Not selling out business or nothing by no means, but it drew good, and I mean, they were still over and everything. Like I said, but you know what? I think that they was over them, but I swear, and I think it was probably just because the time had went by and everything. But me remembering, I think when me and Tommy wound up working against them, and like this goes years past, and not staying in the year that you're in, Gene, but it seemed like they was over more in Louisville than they was Memphis.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Having seen the footage of it, I would definitely agree with that. And it seemed like as the years went by, it seemed like in 91, like there wasn't as much nostalgia for guys who were coming back in who had kind of been away for a while. But by the time you get around there to 96, people were starting to feel that a little more. These legend shows were starting to gain a little more traction, and people were really starting to want to see these guys that they remembered, from years past.
Exactly. And I mean, but now it was cool with me and Tony getting to work with them. I thought that was really cool and everything. Like I said, I thought it was cool because, like I said, it made it draw a little better, and we all made a little more money and everything. And then, like I said, it wound up not just that time, then the deal with me and Tommy getting to work with them, and I thought that was actually cool too. Which, and at the time I didn't really think that much about it. That's what, Gene, when I say, and you're talking about these shows, and me and Tommy start remembering, we was just working every night. It wasn't that, I mean, I don't want to say it didn't mean a lot to us, because it did, but it was our job, and we look back at it now and think, man, you know what? That was some great stuff. But at that time, we was just thinking about that night, and then what we was going to do the following week to follow that up, and then we was thinking about the next night. And Tommy, it wasn't like we thought it was like a big deal, was it? I mean, we just thought it was our job. I mean, we wanted it to be great, but you know what I'm saying? People says, man, y'all had to love that and remember that, or really, you remember that one night. Well, when you're on the road 300 and something days a year and working twice some days. It's not. And like I'm saying, I'm not saying that being negative. I'm saying it being positive, but you just don't. I mean, you're trying to make everything you do the best, and you don't. Hell, what am I trying to say, Tommy? You don't think about it as much.
What I've got to say, well, yeah, because it was like, I mean, we was there, like, it was big to the fans, and it was big to us, because, I mean, when you go and folks are either booing the heck out of you or praising your name, I mean, you get goosebumps, and we always did big business and everything, but while Doug and them was thinking about that other stuff, I was thinking about the party. You know what I'm saying, Jay?
Right. Right, I got you.
But I mean,
it was, and we did it. I mean, it wasn't like it once a month like some of these guys wrestle now. I mean, we was wrestling 7 to 10 times in a week, and pretty much the same guys you would wrestle, especially if you was in the angle with them. So we, you just knew.
You know what I'm saying, Gene? You was trying to think of what you was wanting to do next and what would be good. But we always thought that every week. I mean, we'd go out there and we'd be having our match, and we'd have our match, but while we was doing that, we was trying to think what would be better. What can we do that will be better than this and will get the people more interested next week? What will be, and that was what was always on my mind when we was in all these different angles and everything. And when you're thinking that, you don't just think of that night. You're trying to think ahead to keep everybody and to keep drawing money and to keep bringing people back. And it just...
And not only just thinking about the finishes, I mean, they had to be different, but when you come back, like when you do like the Indies now or just like these promotions, you ain't in these towns, but every so often, we had to, I mean, the whole match had to be different. Yeah, not only the finish, but you couldn't go out there and work the same high spots that you worked the week before, No. I mean, everything had to be fresh, and we did that 52 weeks a year, man.
And, I mean, Gene, you see what I'm saying about that, about us thinking about, I mean, and I loved every night of all of it, but you always had to be thinking ahead. So when people ask me about a lot of it, and I'll think back, and I can remember a lot of it, and that's what me and Tommy talk about. It's funny. I can't remember something yesterday, but he can say something to me or somebody else say something, and I can tell them what happened when and that night and everything. But like I said, the dates and stuff where I'm not good at dates, but I can tell you what happened at a lot of all this stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense because, you can't just live in the moment each week and go out there and just enjoy what's happening right then and not think about it because you've drawn that house, those people are here, but now what am I going to do tonight to make them come back? What's going to make more people
Exactly.
come?
And here's the thing, and when me and Tommy was on our runs and stuff, we was on guarantees. Well, we was on those guarantees because those people was coming, and I wanted those people to keep coming and more to come. So that's, I don't want to say it put pressure on you, but it made you think more, and we just always wanted it to be better. And I mean, I think when you take pride in what you're doing, and I think Tommy always took pride in what he did, and I think I always have took pride in what I've done in the business, that you're going thinking, like I said, we did have a booker, but the only thing, that booker would tell us some things. We wanted to have some things to tell him back, so we would make sure, I mean, if we thought something maybe wasn't quite as good or it wouldn't draw, we wanted to have ideas that we could tell him to throw. And even if you mix those together, or if maybe he went with ours one time, or if we went with his, we would at least have an option. And then if it was ever bad, then, me and Tommy just saying, well, shit, that's our fault. I mean, we didn't ever lay the blame on anybody else.
And no matter how big of a fan you were of wrestling before you get into it, you can't stay in the mindset of, oh man, this is so cool. Eventually it becomes a job, and you have to treat it that way to be successful. You have to treat it like a business, and like you said, get into the mindset of, hey, how are we going to keep building the business? How are we going to keep making this better? You can't just be like, oh man, this is so cool, and just have that mindset.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Gene. I mean, we'd have a great house, me and Tommy said, man, we'd look out and we'd say, man, that's good. And we both say, yeah. And by the time we was walking back down the dressing room, like in Louisville, going down the steps, I'd be thinking, Tommy would too, I'd be thinking, what do we need to do now? And we'd get down the steps and we'd sit down or something, and I'd say, well, what do you think about this? And Tommy would say, well, what if we done this? And we just throw ideas around. But now we've got those people there. Like you said, they're there. They've done paid. But we want to make sure next week is the same, which the deal about the bicycle tapes, the next week would be what we'd done that week before. But then we would need something after that. So, I mean, people don't realize what, like, you know, when I say all of it means the world to us, every night did, but you was always thinking what you was going to do next. It wasn't like people want to think, oh, they was just having fun and everything. Now, don't get me wrong. We had as much fun as we could have, but at the building and after, and I mean, even when we was having fun partying, me and Tommy would talk about angles and what we needed to do and stuff. But I mean, it would just be out of the blue, and some of the best stuff in the world, and you wouldn't think. We might have been having a really good time and partying a little bit, but some of the best ideas, and you wouldn't think, would come from some of those times.
Yeah, well, just sit around, no pressure, and you think, because you get in there, you get it, and it does. I mean, it's like we love what we did, but it was a grind too, because we wrestled 7 days a week, and like Dougie said, you had to be on top of the game, man. I mean, you know, you filled it up this week. What do we do next week to fill it up even more? You know, and that was the mindset. I mean, like, you know, you watch pro football, they get to at least enjoy it that one night. And then they get back to business the next day for the next, you know. We was having to do that every day almost, just trying to stay on top of our game because we wrestled every day of the week.
Yeah, I think people lose sight of that. They think of, all right, you had a good match at the Coliseum, and now you got TV Saturday, and then you got to go to the Coliseum. And like, no, that you were on to the next town the next night. The next town, you were somewhere every night. It wasn't like you just went from Coliseum show to Coliseum show. That's may have been all you saw if you were in Memphis. But, you know, then you were in Evansville, you were in Nashville, you were in, you know, Louisville, all these different places.
Oh, yeah.
But it was cool, though, Gene. I mean, like Tommy said, it was a grind a little bit, but you always had to be thinking. And that's what I think people don't realize a lot. They just think, and when they say something about a match, man, I love all of the matches, but you was always trying to think ahead and everything, so you can go out there and think about that match. But I mean, after you looked out and we'd see the people and everything, we'd say, you know, we get started thinking right for that next week then and everything. But that's what I think people don't really realize and everything.
Well, I think that's probably the mindset that separated the successful wrestlers from the people that just floated around and they were, you know, in the first couple of matches because they didn't give input. They didn't try to think about it. You know, they just showed up and did what they're told. I mean, there's something to be said for that. But, you know, the guys who were given ideas and trying to be better and trying to spice up the story, those were the guys who were more successful, right? Because they're kind of making their own way.
I would say definitely. And like I said, I mean, and even I saw Tommy, and I mean, I did it a few times, but I've seen Tommy give a bunch of other people. I mean, he had a bunch of great ideas for our stuff, but he actually would give a bunch of other people great ideas for their stuff that wound up being good stuff that I would watch, and I think, damn, Tommy had a hell of an idea for this to get these guys over and everything. But that's somebody that's thinking about the business all the time. I mean, and like I said, we did. And like I said, people say whatever, we go out and have a good time and everything. But then when you're having a good time and you're still thinking about the business and thinking about drawing money and like I said, we'd throw ideas off each other. And I mean, and like I said, some of the best was, I mean, you wouldn't believe when we'd come up with them and just out of the blue be talking about something and just, like I said, want to say, what about this? And wound up being good. And like I said, I heard Tommy give a lot of people good ideas for gimmicks, for finishes, for angles and everything. But like I said, Tommy was around, which we both was around great people that had great minds for the business. So I guess that helps a lot also.
One last question, and we're going to wrap it up. and I don't ask this to contradict anything we just talked about, but I feel like this is going to be one of those exceptions to the rule, and I feel like this is going to be one of those nights where you're like, shit, this was cool. So this is a fun result that I come across as I was making this show. On February 4th, 1991, in Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum, Doug Gilbert defeated Jackie Fargo. Now that had to be a night where it's kind of like, now this is pretty cool, right? It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like you and Tony were having some matches with Brian and Tony Williams, the new kids. You'd been guys have been tag champions, and it's right here in the middle of these results on the February 4th card, just kind of out of the blue. Doug Gilbert defeats Jackie Fargo, and then the next week you're wrestling Eric Embry. So I don't really know. I'm going to have to do some studying to see what even the context was, but I just saw that and I'm like, holy cow! Because I mean, did Eddie ever wrestle Jackie Fargo?
No, and I done. What was really cool was, what was really cool was, Tommy and Eddie being with Jackie and them having such great times. But I done a bunch of stuff with Jackie, but it was where a lot of it was where he was Lawler's manager, and at different times, like I would be the heel here that basically Jarrett and Lawler trusted at the time. Like they didn't want a lot of people doing stuff with Fargo because like the guys that come in, they wouldn't know what Fargo meant here. I knew what Fargo meant here. It's like Tommy said the other week, man, like him and Eddie being with Fargo, man, you don't get no better than that. Man, you don't get no better than Jackie Fargo around here. I don't care who you are. And I would love to just go do stuff like Lawler let him in the ring when he was his manager and him nail me once or twice, and the people would freaking go wild. Now, Jackie had to be in his 60s or 70s then, and the people would still, he'd nail you, and you take a bump for him, they'd go wild, and him do that strut, and they'd go crazy. Tommy, he was still over like $1 million, wasn't he?
Shoot, but he's still over now, but yeah. Yeah, the Fargos, in Tennessee, they wasn't nothing no better. When I was a kid, I used to go down to the old Hippodrome and see Jackie and Don. Yeah, that's blonde hair wasn't even cool back then. I probably wasn't eight years old. That was back in 63 or 4 or something like that. I'm going back and then they didn't get nothing but hotter. They was hot then, and when Jackie quit, he was still hot.
And Gene, the last time, I think it was the last time that he come in Jackson, Lawler brought him back, and I worked with Lawler, and he was a special referee, and I told him before we went out, I said, look, nail me every once in a while. He said, no, I don't want to do that. And he wound up not, and we got done with the match, and we done a finish, and he counted, and he went to get out of the ring. I told Lawler, I said, tell him to stay in the ring. And I finally got him to nail me one time, and the freaking people popped, and him and Lawler both did the strut, and I thought, and I'm not sure how old Jackie was when he passed away, Gene, I'm sure you know, or whatever, but it was right before then, and man, he was still freaking over, just crazy over, and he was such a good guy. He was always so nice to me and everything, but I loved to be around him, and I knew what he meant. Like other guys that hadn't been in here and everything, they would think, well, what's this older guy? What's, and he was over more than all of them. Than all the baby faces. It didn't matter what his age was or what he looked like.
We just recently for the 93 USWA show that we do, Jackie come in. He was a referee for a match between Brian and Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff won the Southern title from Brian. And of course, afterwards, Brian grabs Jackie and shoves him, and man, Jackie falls back, hits that rope, nails him with a perfect right hand, and he hits that strut, and everybody in that Coliseum was on their feet. It was just like it was 1970 something again. It was awesome to see.
Right. And that's people can't imagine that, Gene, if they didn't see it or whatever. But he was that over, wasn't he, Tommy?
Yes, sir. Oh, Jackie Fargo. that's what got me started watching wrestling. You know, I mean, I used to go. God, yeah. Well, like I said, I was a little youngster, and you know, and that's the reason I wanted to go. You know, my daddy knew Eddie Marlin, but that's the reason I wanted to go was to see the Fargos, man. You know, I mean, I would just shit ever since I can remember. You know, and then like Dougie said too. I mean, Eddie and myself, we had the honor and pleasure both of him, you know, managing us and taking us down, being the Fabs and doing that. I mean, just one of the greatest people I've met, one of the greatest people to be around too. I mean, Jackie was.
And Gene, me and Tommy want to leave here and tell everybody we want everybody to have a happy new year and bring in the new year safe. And man, if there's anything else, Tommy, you want to say to the guy, but like I said, we appreciate everybody listening, everybody rate, review. But anyway, yeah, follow the page and everything. But main thing, Gene, myself, Tommy, we all want y'all to have a happy new year. And Tommy, you and me and Gene have a happy new year also. And man, everybody bringing the new year the right way.
That's drinking one for me.
Listen, guys, thanks everybody for listening, and peace. We're out.
Hey, just want to let everybody know real quick where the Memphis Mafia, Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich are going to be headed really soon. You can catch them at the Jackson Comic Expo Saturday, March 1st, 2025 at the Carl Perkins Civic Center, Jackson, Tennessee. They're going to be there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Also, don't forget the TWA WrestleCon convention as well as the big one-and-done wrestling event Saturday, May the 3rd. Convention is going to run from noon to 3:30 p.m. Then the doors will open for the show at 6 p.m. Bell time is 7:30. For more info on both of these events, check our Facebook page as well as our Twitter. And we're going to be having a lot more dates added here real soon. Just keep listening to the podcast for more. Before we get out of here, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone, if you have an upcoming wrestling show, autograph signing, collector show, Comic-Con, or any event or booking that you would like to inquire about the services of Dangerous Doug Gilbert and or Tommy Wildfire Rich, just send us an email at douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible to get more information on your event and do the best we can to make that happen. Also, if you are interested in advertising your event, your business, your product to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations, as well as to promote your event, business, or product across all our social media platforms, you can send that inquiry to douggilbertpodcast@outlook.com. We would love to work together with you to get that out there to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations. Remember to check out douggilbertpodcast.com. There you can find links to all things related to this podcast, as well as Doug and Tommy themselves. You'll find a link to the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page and the Dangerous Conversations Twitter, now known as X. And we're always posting content daily, involving the Gilbert family, Tommy Rich, all sorts of things from their career. We got magazine articles, videos, pictures, you name it. We're posting new content every single day. Make sure you follow so you don't miss out on any of that. Plus, you can follow Doug and Tommy's personal Facebook pages on there. Dangerous Doug Gilbert. You can search that on Facebook. You can also search Tommy Wildfire Rich. They both have Facebook pages. And Doug does have an X page as well, and you can follow them there. But if you really want to help support, you can go to the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, which there's a link to there on the douggilbertpodcast.com. And you can find t-shirts of Doug, Eddie, and their famous father, Tommy Gilbert, as well. Also, Tommy Rich is going to be having some t-shirts coming up very soon. Follow him on Facebook. We'll be talking about him here. But look for some cool new Tommy Wildfire Rich t-shirts coming out soon that you can partake in as well. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on the platform of your choice. It would really help us in building up the podcast for the future. Plus, it helps us know what you like, what you don't like, where we need to take this podcast moving forward. Also, if you want to see a whole bunch of matches, promos, and angles, a lot of the ones that you're going to hear us talk about on this very podcast, you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@RetroWrestlingArchive. Of course, it's linked right there at douggilbertpodcast.com. And you will find a ton of matches featuring Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Gilbert, Doug Gilbert, Tommy Wildfire Rich. There's playlists of all them that feature hundreds of matches of each of them. So make sure you go check that out. And not just of them, there are thousands, literally, at this point, of videos from wrestling from across the territory days, you name it. If we don't have the video uploaded to our channel, we at least have organized you a playlist of just about every territory, every show that's out there. You can find it in one convenient location there on YouTube at the Retro Wrestling Archive. Plus, don't forget, you can find all things related to my popular Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast at uswapodcast.com. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com to check out all the great pro wrestling related podcasts and various content that our friend Ray Russell provides you. You'll be glad you did. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich.
In the heart of Tennessee, born with pride, Doug and Tommy taking rings in stride. Memphis legends never backing down, wrestling warriors, they wear the crown. USWA, glory in their veins, fighting legends breaking chains. In the square circle they made their name. Podcast champions, it's their claim to fame. On the mic they rode, on the map they soared. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage. From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory